Once upon a time was a merchant who had 3 daughters. One day he had to go on a long journey, and he asked each of his daughters what they would like for him to bring back for them. The oldest one wanted pearls, the second one wanted diamonds, but the third one said,
"Father dear, I would like a singing, springing lark."
The merchant kissed them all on the head and promised,
"Yes, if I can get it, you shall have it."
And he set off for his journey. In his travels, he found pearls, he found diamonds, but nowhere could he find a singing, soaring lark. Until But today was, in fact, not the merchant's lucky day. And that was the reason.
I will eat anyone who tries to steal my singing, springing lark.
Oh dear.
I didn't know that singing, sparkling lark belonged to you. I'll make amends for my wrong. I'll ransom myself for a large sum of money. Just please spare my life.
Nothing can save you unless you promise to give me that which first meets you when you arrive home. If you will do that, I will grant you your life. You shall have your singing, sprawling lark as well.
Wow, what a generous deal!
Well, what a generous deal. I accept.
So the merchant returned home with a spring in his step. But all did not go exactly as planned.
"Daddy, you're home! Have you brought me my singing, springing lark?"
The merchant immediately broke down in tears, crying.
My dearest child, I paid dearly for that little bird. To get it, I had to promise you to a wild lion who, when he gets you, he'll tear you to pieces and eat you up.
The merchant begged his daughter not to go to the lion, but she was made of rather sterner stuff than her father, and said,
"Father, your promise may have been ill-advised, but it must be kept. I will go and appease the lion and return to you safely."
So the next day the girl set off on the hard journey to the lion's castle, regretting the fact that her father's skills for forethought were somewhat less than her excitement to see him. Determination and trepidation mixed as she entered the castle. Thankfully for the girl, it turned out that the lion was in fact a very handsome prince under an enchantment, and after all, everyone had their drawbacks, and he did have a castle, so they very swiftly fell in love, and were married. They lived happily, sleeping in the day and waking at nightfall. Till one day they received a letter which said,
"My dearest daughter, if you still live, it would be lovely to see you on Sunday for the wedding of your eldest sister. Best wishes, your father."
"I do not wish to go home if I cannot share my joy with my family. You must come with me."
The lion, however, said,
"Oh no, for it would be too dangerous for me. For if a ray from a burning light were to hit me there, well, I'd be transformed into a dove. I'd have to fly with doves for 7 years.
"Oh,"
she said.
But do come. I will protect you from all light."
For they really were sickeningly in love. The lion agreed to go with her. The girl went to the wedding, and when she arrived there was great joy, for they all believed that she had been torn to pieces by the lion and was no longer alive. But she told them what a handsome husband she had and how well off she was. During the wedding, the lion was kept in a completely pitch-black room. Everything was going swimmingly.
Ievan äiti se tyttönsä vahti, vaan kyllähän Ieva se juutti. Sillä ei meitä silloin kiellot haittaa, kun me tanssimme laidasta laitaan. Sankeli, tappu, täppet, tikkut hiljalleen.
However, as the wedding party went past, some idiot knocked into the door, and the tiniest sliver of light entered the room and touched the prince. When the girl returned to find her husband, she found a dove who said,
For 7 years I must fly about into the world. Every 7 steps I will let fall a drop of red blood and a white feather. These will show you the way, and if you follow this trail, you can redeem me.
And flew out the door. The girl followed, and everything happened as the dove had said. Thus she went further and further into the wide world. She neither looked aside nor rested. When the 7 years were almost past, she rejoiced, thinking that they would soon be redeemed, but they were far from it. One day, when she was thus walking onward, no little feather and no drop of red blood fell, and when she raised her eyes, the dove had disappeared. Desperate for any clue, the girl followed any hint which could lead to her husband, until she came to the North Sea. And there she found her lion fighting with a serpent. She counted the reeds by the sea, cut off the 11th one, struck the serpent with it, and the lion subdued it. Immediately they both regained their human bodies. At last a return to domestic bliss hovers at the horizon. But sadly, princesses who have been serpents are not the most trustworthy people you can meet, and when the princess was free from the enchantment, she took the former lion by the arm and carried him away with her. There stood the poor girl who had wandered so far and was forsaken again. She sat down and cried. At last, however, she took courage and said,
I will continue on as far as the wind blows and as long as the cock crows, until I find him.
And she went on a long, long way. Until at last she came to the castle where both of them were living together. There she heard that a feast was to be held soon, at which the princess and her former lion were to be married. At this point, having given up doubt, fear and uncertainty, the girl declared,
Whatever I must do, I shall see my husband. I shall rescue him if he needs rescuing, and if he has thrown me, I shall throw him too, returning to my singing springing lark, and I will have just what I want.
Wanting to look best for either her daring rescue mission or confrontation with her husband, she went to the nearest stream and fashioned herself a dress out of the sunlight sparkling on the water. When she entered the castle wearing the dress, everyone, even the bride herself, looked at her with astonishment. The bride liked the dress so well that she thought it could be her wedding dress, and she asked if it was for sale.
Not for money or property,
Answered the girl.
but for flesh and blood.
The bride asked what she meant by that. She said,
If you let me sleep one night in the room with the bridegroom, then you shall have the dress.
The bride did not want to allow this, but the dress was really nice, so at last she consented. However, she ordered a servant to give the prince a sleeping potion. That night, after the youth was already asleep, she was led into his room. The girl sat down on the bed and said,
I have followed you for 7 years. I have helped you defeat the serpent. Will you then forget me entirely?
However, the prince was so sound asleep that it only seemed to him like the wind was rustling outside in the fir trees. When the morning broke, he was led out again. Her husband's snores not having been the satisfyingly definitive answer she wanted, she thought what else she could give to the princess in exchange for another night at her love's side. As she cast around, she saw a spark of gold, and saw that her singing, squalling lark had followed her. Her heart fell as she realized what she must do, and she made her way back into the castle with the lark on her shoulder. The princess, seeing it, immediately demanded to have it. But the girl once again answered,
Not for money or property, but for flesh and blood. Let me sleep in the room with the bridegroom one more night, and you shall have the lark.
The bride said yes, intending to cheat her as she had done the previous evening. However, when the prince went to bed, he asked his servant what the murmuring and rustling in the night had been. Then the servant told him everything, about the strange girl and the sleeping potion. Now this was the final straw in the prince's suspicions of his fiancée, for since he arrived at the castle he found there were gaps in his memory he couldn't explain, and flitting memories of lions and lamps and battles and journeys, and a singing, swelling lark came to him for seemingly no reason at all. That night the girl was again led in. The prince immediately recognized his dear wife by her voice, jumped up and cried,
I have been redeemed. You have lifted the princess's curse, which caused me to forget you. Oh, just in time!
Snuck out of the castle secretly that night, and made the long, hard trek back to the prince's castle, both of them feeling after their trials it was the easiest journey they had ever taken. Returning home, the girl laughed to see above their doorway the singing, soaring lark who had been the cause of all her sorrows and happiness.
Let's go.